how can you get approved for flight training through VR&E, or Veterans Readiness and Employment? Veterans Readiness and Employment can be already difficult enough to be approved for. And adding the flight training aspect on top of it, it's essentially like seeing a unicorn. Well, stay tuned and I'll teach you some strategies and tips to find that unicorn.
Oh, what a stroke of luck.
Alright, so I'm going to play a clip from a video that I posted a few months ago. I did this video with a friend of mine. His name is Justin. He is currently, I believe, an instrument student at a university in the United States, and he is on VR&E for a flight training program or a flight training pathway. So he's using VR&E to, basically become a commercial pilot, or whatever his end goal is that he decides with VR&E, because remember, with VR&E it is an employment program, so you have to specify basically an end goal with the VA, like, hey, I want to be a software engineer here and I need support until I get there. So in that moment of specification that he has, he will get support through the VA until then. So he is on Veterans Readiness and Employment currently, and I spoke with Justin about, what are some tips or some things that you would tell other veterans that you think helped you get approved for Veterans Readiness and Employment flight training path. I think this is very important information, especially anybody out there who's, looking to get their flight training paid for. And shout out to Justin. Thank you again for reaching out. He's got some great YouTube videos of him flying his Piper Cub. I'll post his channel in the description below. Very, very knowledgeable dude. I hope you guys enjoy this. And apologies for the choppy audio ahead of time. I hope it isn't too annoying, but I deleted the original file, so I had to download this file from YouTube, and the audio is just a little corrupted. But having said that, there's still a ton of good information in here that Justin puts out. Not only tips on getting approved for VR&E flight path, but also just the whole process and how it goes down. So I hope you can bear through it, because I think you will be happy that you did.
True. Okay, so on the VR&E side, right?
Yeah, let's
get
to the VR&E.
Let's get back to adult stuff. All right, so you get your private pilot's license, and now you're going to go to VR&E, right? So what you need to do is you need to go to a VR&E counselor. You need to apply, and in order to do that, you have to have at least a 10% disability rating, right? Super important. Mm-hmm. But the higher disability rating you have, the better chances. And the intent of VR&E, and this is super important, is that you understand that VR&E is there to reduce the impact your disabilities have on your ability to have a career. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can't just be like, I have tinnitus. Okay, dude, how are you unable to hold a job?
Yeah,
right?
You gotta connect that to your current field of work, or how it's affecting you not getting a job.
So, like, example is I have some back disabilities. Like, my lower back is kind of jacked up, right? I could go into it more, but we're not on a medical podcast. So, my lower back is jacked up. I can't stand on my feet for 12 hours a day because it hurts, right? But after like 2 hours, I'm like, no, I got to sit down, dude. So when I first got out of the Army, before I got into aviation, I thought about a career in law enforcement. And I was like, no, can't do that, dude. My back is jacked up. Like, I just can't do it. And so I kind of like bounced around and got in the aviation side. Well, when I went to go to VR&E, they're like, well, how does aviation reduce the impact your disabilities have on you? And I was like, oh, easy. I don't have to stand on my feet for 12 hours a day. Mm-hmm. I can't put 100 pounds of gear on my back anymore. I can't wear body armor all day long. I don't want to go back into an environment that reminds me of Afghanistan. Aviation is, to me, what you would consider post-traumatic rehabilitation, right? It provides enough of a focus and purpose for me that the PTSD effects are minimal because I have purpose, direction, motivation. I have something to accomplish that has wide ranges of career progression. I can be an air show pilot, a crop duster, survey pilot. There's everything under the sun is possible,
Yeah.
you know? And so it allowed me to specialize in an area and stay focused on what and how I wanted. And that was a huge kicker into, getting VR&E. Now, I know people are going to be like, well, I didn't deploy or I don't have PTSD. Totally fine. When you separate from the military, you are easily eligible to get PTSD rating via depression, because depression and PTSD are under the same umbrella of a medical disability through the VA. Now, don't go taking a bunch of antidepressants. That's not the purpose of that. If you take any antidepressants, you're not going to get an FAA medical. If you can't get a medical, you can't fly, which is a huge deal. So you can be depressed when you leave the military. You can be like, dude, this sucks. Like, I don't like the civilian world. It's realistically, if you haven't been in combat, it's your first true test of loss in your life. Yeah. You're leaving a huge support network, friends and family, basically. You've been around for 3+ years doing really intense stuff. And the military is just one big trauma bond, is really all it is. And so now you're out. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and now you get out and you have no one to relate to. You have no trauma bonding available, right? Because none of the civilians have gone through what you've gone through, right? So now you're just by yourself. There's nothing for you to do. And
pretty much switching, and you're switching careers too. So it's not only like, your friends, kind of your family in a way, probably the place that you live too. I mean, a lot of vets move usually from the place that they live, afterwards. So changing all those things and then including your career. So there's no wonder there's going to be a little bit of space there, maybe some depression from basically starting your life over.
Yeah. And that goes to the point too, like why most criminals end up back in jail is because they can't adapt to the civilian world. Even though they're civilians, they can't really adapt outside of jail because they're not resonating with people who have trauma bonding experiences. Whether it could be a guy who just got one too many speeding tickets, because you can go to jail for having speeding tickets. And God forbid the extreme side of things, but you're not going to be able to adapt very well after you've been through that experience compared to other civilians. So you can get that VA rating, and as long as you're not on any medications, you can go see a therapist, no problem. In fact, I highly encourage you to go see one anyway, especially as you're getting out. Go through the VA, just get one. Just talk about how you could be happy. Like, just go see a therapist because you're happy. There's nothing wrong with that, because if you're just having a bad fucking day and you're just like, I don't know what to do about this, therapist is going to help you cognitively work around that 90-degree turn in your emotions to figure out how to unstuck yourself from that situation. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's part of maintaining your health side and being healthy when you get out. So you should go anyway. But on that, it's actually better for you because then the FAA won't make a big deal out of it. I'm rated pretty high for PTSD, and I have never taken any medications. I've never been depressed. I've never had any medical issues. I just go see a therapist bi-weekly or as needed. And that's been fine with me. And I have a first-class medical, so.
And you just stick on a schedule of, I see the therapist on X day of the week or X day of the month, and you keep that consistently.
Yep. Been doing it for 5 years now. Just literally up. It could be good days, bad days. Like, I did shit this week. I've sat around and read books, and life sucks, and I'm grinding through college, and I can't wait to go be a professional pilot, and, that's cool. Or like, today was a good day. I got up, I went out with a few buddies, we had a beer, I didn't have to fly tomorrow, so I could drink a little bit more. Or I went to the gym and hit a new PR, or I played Xbox for 6 hours today because I'm lazy. Like, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go to a therapist just because you're freaking sad. Like, I've become friends with my therapist where I'm excited to tell her things like, I had a good day today. Check this out, And she turned out to be a really great person, and I keep it very professional. Like, I don't talk to her outside of a professional setting. But there are times I'm excited to go talk to my therapist because she's a good therapist and she knows what she's doing. So go see a therapist, and that'll help with the PTSD side.
That's good. Glad you have that. A lot of people, need that and don't have that.
Most people don't know.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would say that's definitely true. Even
So
even if you're, I think there's been a lot of awareness spread for like combat veterans coming out,
mhm.
and awareness for combat veterans getting help. But I think even on the level of if you're a veteran and not a combat veteran, that I think there's a stigma that those veterans don't need help or or you shouldn't need help because you're never in combat. But like we were just talking about, you could think that you're fine, but with this entire life change that you're just going through right now,
Yeah.
that might throw you off a little bit.
It's not, it might, it will. It's going to, and it's going to take, I think right now, like the average time for a veteran well, okay, first off, if you join the Army or the military, whatever, Marine Corps or whatever training organization you joined, if you joined at 17, well, you're in high school, you turn 18, you graduate high school, and then you left for basic training, you are not reintegrating back into society. You are integrating back in. Well, excuse me, you're integrating in, not reintegrating back in. So anyway, you get through that medical process with the VR&E counselor, and then they're going to want you to do some homework on your career field. You're going to go, they're going to give you a bunch of websites, and you're going to have to go to these websites, and they're going to have to show that this career field generates enough over 5 or 10 or a career's length, and that career is the field expected growth within that career is good. So typically around 4 to 6% is what you want to see for a career. So if you're doing the research on this career to show that it is a viable career for you to stay into, you should be around 4 to 6%. Because what they don't want to see is they're going to pay $100,000 for a career that doesn't have career growth. In fact, it's the inverse. And then you've got a career that you can do nothing with because it's flooded or has no relevancy. Like an example would be, if you wanted to be we'll just say like you wanted to be a construction worker or real estate agent. There's like 2 million real estate agents in the country. The V&RE is not going to pay for you to be a real estate agent, that type of thing. Yeah. There's no career growth in it. So once you get that 4, 6%, you'll do that. And here's the most important part, especially for aviation, or really any career, but especially for aviation, is you need to put down, you're going to basically sign a contract with VR&E that says, hey, you guys are going to pay for me to get to this level in the career field, right? You want to put the highest level possible in that career field. So if you want to be a chief pilot at Delta Airlines or Southwest, you want to be the highest level pilot there, right? 30,000 flight hours. You're the guy that does all the check airmen. You're the ones that certify their airplanes. You're the one that works with their lawyers and their insurance companies and teaches them how to teach you how to fly that airplane, the brand new airplane they bought, right? You need to put that in that written contract with them that says, I want to be a chief airplane pilot at a major airlines, okay? Because yes, you're going to finish your degree program, but you're not hireable at that level that you put down on that piece of paper. So VR&E has to find a way to get you from the lowest level to the highest level. So they're going to find that entire career path all the way through, and they're not going to close the file on you until you've gotten to that level. So don't be like, hey, I want to be a commercial airline pilot. Well, you have your commercial pilot's license, you're a commercial pilot. Good luck. And you're only at 250 hours, no multi-engine time, no night time, no instrument time. You're just, hey, you've met, like we talked about, check the boxes, do the task, pass the test, but you're really not at the level in the career that you said you wanted to get to, right? So that's like the most important thing you need to understand about VR&E is you have to mention all the way to the top. Otherwise, you're going to get the very bottom. Whatever you put in there is what you're going to get. And I'm going through that with my career counselor right now because I have a job opportunity and I want to leave school to go do that job, right? You and I talked a little bit about before the podcast, but I want to leave to go do a job. I don't want to stay in school full time. I want to go part-time online and go into the job field and do both simultaneously. In that process, I put down that I wanted to go fly for Southwest. Literally, I named Southwest, and I said commercial airline pilot, right? Well, the problem with Southwest is they require 2,000 hours total time and a minimum of 1,000 hours turboprop to be really competitive to work there. Well, my flight school is not going to give me 1,000 hours turboprop, and neither is being a CFI. You're not going to get 1,000 hours turboprop. So it is now VR&E's job to find me how to get 1,000 hours of turboprop, and they have to find a way to pay for it. So I have to find an employer that's got the turboprop, and I have to figure out how to bridge the two and teach them how to do it. So that opened up a whole different basket of opportunity for me, because I'm like, I can go get a job being a crop duster. So now they'll work a program with the crop duster, hopefully. I say hopefully because we're in this process right now. I'm learning as I'm going, that they will pay me to go do this on-the-job training as a commercial pilot to get my 1,000 hours turboprop. And this is probably what we talked about earlier, where guys are like, what's the difference between you being a commercial pilot and you flying for a commercial airline? And we've talked about this a little bit before, talking, people don't understand the difference. A commercial pilot is just a rating. You are commercially available for compensation or hire. A commercial airline pilot is a pilot who has a commercial license that operates in either Part 135 operations, Part 137 operations, or Part 121 operations. You can operate some aircraft under a Part 91 operation, which is like I flew my local Piper Cub under a Part 91 operation. But typically, most people associate commercial airline pilot with a 121 operation. So Delta, Southwest, American, United, those are a Part 121 operation. Part 135 is a non-scheduled airline. Southwest, Delta, American, those are scheduled airlines. And then a Part 137 operation is a crop duster. So in order for me to get to the highest level, I have to work my way up, and VR&E has to get me there. So I set the bar really high in the written contract I make with them, and then now they have to get me there. That's the most important part.
And then you're going to be using them, leveraging them until you get to that position that you laid out.
And I put in there that, yes, the bachelor's degree helps, but it is not required. So I gave myself a little maneuver room to be like, I'm dropping out of full-time, going to part-time to pick up the job experience side and work my way towards the top simultaneously.
Yeah. Nice, man. That's sweet.
It took forever. Like, it took me 3 years to figure out how to get there. And it took a long time. Yeah. Every day I'd search the internet. How do I get private pilot's license for free? And most of the searches bring me up to the VA's website that says what you can typically get. And they'll say like a multi-engine rating or a type rating. Like, you can get a 747 rating. I'm like, I can go get a 747 rating? Okay. How do I do that? And then, you have to have your private. You have to have your instrument. You have to have your commercial. You have to work for an airliner. Then we'll get you the rating. And I'm like, okay, well, you guys don't cover the rest of that? And everyone's like, no. I'm like, well, why would you have the link on Google for that then? And so I was just dead end after dead end after dead end. And I was like, I've had enough of this. There's got to be a way. And I literally, through researching it and stumbling upon K-State, I found it. And that just, boom, floodgates open. Once you get into a school that has a Part 141 program and your private pilot's license is covered, as soon as you get your private pilot's license, go get your own airplane. Go find a Luscombe, a Piper Cub, an Aranca Chief, and a Aranca Champ you can get them anywhere from $18,000 to $45,000, the cost of a Honda Civic, right? Go get one of those airplanes and go fly to local airports on your own, because those airplanes are, like we talked about, cheap to maintain, cheap to fly, and easy to fly. Go to these local airports and begin the networking process. You run into a mechanic here, an inspector here, a FISDO there, a local veteran who has his own airplane, who's a F-16 pilot, but he's a CFI, so he can sign you off on an extra rating and help you do extra flight training. He knows this guy over here. And once I started doing that, the doors just got wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. And now when I have to do work in my airplane, I just call a guy up that I know, and he's like, I'll be up there in a couple hours. Let me help you out. And then he calls me, hey, I need some help down here, and I go and help him out.
And that's what people, especially veterans, don't do enough. And I know I haven't done that enough, is just networking. And that's like literally one of the most important things.
If you go down
it's
to
all about
your
who
local
you know.
FBO.
All about who you know.
It really is. If you go to your local FBO, and I'm sure you know the local FBO folks where you fly at, right? Mm-hmm. If you go down there and you're like, hey, are there any cool airplanes on the field? Just ask that. And if they're like, Joe Smith over in Hangar 5's got a a Mustang. You're like, oh, hey, next time Joe comes in, could you let me know? I'd like to maybe talk to him and just ask questions. And sure. And they'll give you a call or a text or an email, and you show up when Joe shows up. Next thing you know, you're like, hey, my name's Travis. I'm the world's best student. And I wanted to maybe help pre-flight with you or something. That dude would be like, yeah, dude, come on. And next thing you know, you're in a Mustang somewhere zipping around wherever because no one wants to fly by themselves. The coolest part about aviation is you get to fly with other people, So if you can fly with someone who's just as excited for you in aviation, like you're going to have way cooler times.
Yeah. Just got to be a little willing to put yourself out there and just a little curious, I think, too.
Not bi-curious, but just curious.